Good morning, aspirants. It's 16th of October today, and I welcome you all on today's edition of What to Read in the Hindu newspaper. I'm 𝗗𝗶𝗹𝘆 𝗡𝗲𝗄𝐻, Senior Mentor at Prepp IAS. We will not only see the relevant articles from the lens of prelims and mains, but we'll also try and interlink it with other GS papers as well. I am here to align your newspaper reading as a part of our GS syllabus. So let's get started. The very first article that is there in the paper and that catches our attention from our exam perspective is about trade deficit widens 93% in September as services slump. When we map this particular article in our syllabus, this will fall under GS paper 3, Indian economy, growth, development, and external sector. From prelims perspective, the arenas that we have to unfold upon is about current trends with regard to trade data, balance of payment data, current account deficit data, currency dynamics that is going on. The theme that has been discussed in this particular article is about India's trade deficit has surged almost around 93% year on year due to rising oil and gold imports and slowing exports amid weak global demand. So we need to know the conceptual clarity of trade deficit and current account deficit, invisible exports and services trade offset, then impact on rupee and forex reserves of the country. From mains perspective, the arenas that we have to unfold upon is about impact of trade imbalance on macroeconomic stability, structural bottlenecks in India's export competitiveness, policy steps that has been taken in regard to promoting our exports such as PLI, logistics reforms, FTAs that we have signed to narrow the deficit that we are facing in this particular arena. So in this manner, this particular article is to be holistically seen step by step and components by components. Moving on, the next important article that is there in the paper and that catches our attention is on editorials page, and it talks about refugees and infiltrators. When we map this particular article in our syllabus, this will fall under GS paper 2 under the theme governance, human rights issues, and vulnerable section. This can even be interlinked with GS paper 4 as well, wherein human dignity versus national security is to be balanced. This article primarily focuses on critics political framing of migrants and distinguishing refugees under international law from illegal infiltrators. From prelims perspective, the arenas that we have to know is about 1951 Refugee Convention and India's non-signatory status, difference between asylum seekers, refugees, and migrants, national legislation with regard to it, such as Foreigners Act, Citizenship Act, and Citizenship Amendment Act of 2019. From mains perspective, this article is to be seen through the lens of balancing national security with humanitarian obligations, constitutional values such as under Article 21, right to life with dignity of life for all persons. We need to know the case studies wherein such as Rohingyas, Afghan refugees, and Chakmas have been, how we have given them asylum. So in this manner, this particular article is to be seen. Also, we need to take a moral stance wherein 𝗍𝐵𝗲𝗍 𝗶𝗍𝐺 is our philosophy in diplomacy versus absence of a national refugee law. This is also to be explored while going through this particular article. The next important article that is there in the paper is just next to it, and this talks about navigating the global economic transformation. Now, when we map this particular article, this will fall under GS paper 2 IR, GS paper 3 economy, and globalization. The key theme that has been discussed in this particular article, such as how economic weight is shifting from West to Asia, with BRICS plus expansion emerging as a parallel growth pole in current time. From prelims perspective, the areas wherein we have to brush up our knowledge is on knowing about IMF structure, its voting right, World Bank voting shares, afterwards BRICS expansion, de-dollarization trends that we are trying, and also internationalization of rupees that we are trying to do, purchasing power parity versus nominal GDP. For May's perspective, the same article is to be seen through the lens of rise of multipolarity in global economy, India's opportunity to leverage South-South cooperation, strategic implication for trade, technology, and financial governance. So also there's one report which is published by World Economic Outlook 2025 from IMF. So we need to know that says is about Asia contributes over 60% of global growth. So in this manner, how India can recalibrate its negotiations with countries with regard to bilateral and multilateral institution and pose itself as a front runner of tapping this growth opportunity that we are seeing in current time. Moving on, the next important article that is there in the paper and that catches our attention is about the road to the critical factor in India's clean energy transition. So this article is relevant with regard to GS paper 3, infrastructure, energy, mineral resources, and environment. For prelims perspective, we need to know the reserves of lithium, cobalt, rare earth elements reserves, and India's new mining policy. The key theme that has been discussed in this particular article is about India's critical mineral strategy aims to secure lithium, cobalt, nickel supplies essential for EVs and clean tech. From prelims perspective, we need to know about critical mineral mission, 𝗗𝗶𝐿, that is Khanij Videsh India Limited, then mapping mineral reserves in Australia, Argentina, and Africa. From May's perspective, this article is to be seen through the lens of role in energy transition and Atmanirbhar Bharat, supply chain security and India's resource diplomacy, environmental and geopolitical dimensions. We can even interlink with a national geoscience data repository and India-Australia collaboration in this regard. So this is how this particular article is to be seen multi-dimensionally, which holds relevance for our prelims and mains both by interlinking it with other GS papers as well. The next important article that is there in the paper and that catches our attention is about the road to gender equity in courts. Now, this is relevant with regard to GS paper 2, polity, governance, and women empowerment. Also important for GS paper 1, role of women and social empowerment. The key theme that has been discussed is about gender gap that is evident in higher judiciary, wherein women, only 13% of the High Court judges are comprising of women. For prelims perspective, we need to know the constitutional articles with regard to appointment of judges. With regard to this, article 124 and 217, collegium system basics and the several cases associated with it, we need to know about the NJAC. For May's perspective, what are the institutional barriers and glass ceiling in judiciary? Diversity as a component of judicial legitimacy is the need of our. What are the suggestive reforms to include more number of women in higher judiciary? Transparent appointment process system and mentorship pipelines that is needed. Also, UNDP's Gender Justice Index of 2024 can be quoted and read and revised while going through this particular article. The next important article that is there in the paper and relevant for our exam is about IMEC, the future of IMEC. So when we map this particular article in our syllabus, this is relevant with GS paper 2, IR, GS paper 3, infrastructure, connectivity, and trade. The key theme that has been discussed in this particular article is about India, UAE, and EU. They are discussing reviving IMEC project amid rising Red Sea disruptions that is being seen nowadays to alternative form of connectivity project that China is posing in a form of BRI. So IMEC India, Middle East, Europe corridor is very much relevant for trade and connectivity project. So for prelims perspective, we need to know IMEC route countries, maritime check ports such as Suez Canal, Strait of Hormuz. We can even compare this with BRI and INSTC. For May's perspective, strategic significance for India's connectivity diplomacy, role in reducing logistics cost and diversifying supply chain. We can even interlink it with India's vision of Sagar and global partnership. So in this manner, this particular article is to be seen, read and revised. So this is all from my end for today's Hindu newspaper analysis. Till we meet for the next time, take care and goodbye.